Every journey gets us closer to the same truth. We all need connection.
You are watching In Conversation This Week with Miceal O'Hurley.
This is Miceal O'Hurley, the editor of Diplomacy in Ireland, the European Diplomat. We have a very special guest today, Dr. Sasa. He was a special envoy to the United Nations, a spokesperson, and he is the Minister for International Cooperation in the National Unity Government of Myanmar. Dr. Sasa, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much indeed for having me, Miceal.
Anytime. I always value your opinion and your views. I want to jump right into it because I know just how busy you are. Dr. Sasa, it's been almost 18 months since the Tatmadaw conducted a coup d'etat and deposed the democratically elected government in Myanmar. Tell me how things stand today.
The will of the people of Myanmar, democratic will of the people of Myanmar, were overthrown by battlefield weapons of genocidal military generals in Myanmar. And I must say, all what we are facing now is the results and the consequence of political crisis created by military generals in Myanmar. And doing so, they are using Russian weapons, which are now killing Ukrainian people. When we say people, the people of Ukrainian and the people of Myanmar are fighting for democracy and freedom. They are fighting for humanity. So as a result, and I know also, Miceal, you have visited Ukraine. For that, I really appreciate for your heart and all your solidarity from Ireland to the people of Ukraine and also the people of Myanmar. And as a result of the political crisis created by genocidal military junta, now Myanmar is facing unspeakable, uncontainable pain, suffering, death, and destructions here. 27 million people, which is a half population of the entire nation of Myanmar, are suffering from extreme poverty. It's all made by this genocidal military junta. Plus, 1.2 million people of Myanmar are homeless. They are eternally displaced people. And more than 2,000 people, innocent people, they have done nothing wrong, especially the children, women, are being killed in cold blood. And more than 11,000 house, civilian properties, including church, schools, community centers, hospital, were being burned down to the ground or completely destroyed by this military act of terrorism against the entire nation of Myanmar. Plus, elected leader of Myanmar, like Mr. President Win Myint and State Councilor Aung San Suu Kyi, and along with them more than 10,000 innocent people and leaders and elected officials were being unjustly detained till today. We don't know where they are. We don't know what is happening to them. So we are facing now, as political crisis resulted into humanitarian crisis and disease crisis, COVID-19 crisis still, COVID-19 vaccinations has not reached many people in Myanmar. And this violence crisis. All these crises are created by these hateful military generals in Myanmar.
Dr. Sasa, I too share some of your same insights about the similarities between Ukraine and Burma. You know that I know Ukraine intimately. I've been involved with Ukraine for over 30 years. I've covered 6 wars in the last 40 years. I know human atrocities. And I know that there are thousands of people of Myanmar who have been subjected to summary execution, women and children to serial rape by the military junta's soldiers. The catalog of evils that has gone on in Myanmar are every bit as bad as they are in Ukraine. Why do you think Europe has reacted differently to events in Myanmar than they have in Ukraine?
Firstly, it's humanity. It's about humanity. It's about human being. Another side, it's about crime against humanity. It's atrocities. It's darknesses. So, really, in Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin is using terror as a weapon. Exactly the same in Myanmar, General Miceal O'Hurley and his foot soldiers are using just not only the weapons or the bullets or the bombs, but they are using these humanitarian crisis as weapon, starvation as weapon, rape as weapon, crimes as weapons, atrocities as weapons, the suffering and the pain of human being as weapon. That's exactly what is going on in Ukraine and in Myanmar. But it's similar. Either, Ukrainian people or Myanmar people, they are subjected to this suffering and the pain and death and destructions. So if Ukrainian people bleed, it come out, the blood of pain and suffering. Very simple. Injustice. It bleeds of injustice blood. It bleeds of human being suffering. It's not about Ukraine, it's not about Myanmar, it's about humanity and human being. So we all are in a way the same body called the world. So the response, firstly, the response of Ukraine people to this injustice and this unrighteousness and these darknesses is brave, is great. They are showing the pure humanity on the face of crime against humanity. The same, the people of Myanmar are showing every day of the last 70 months the bravery, the courage on the face of injustice and crime against humanity. It's the same. But the difference is ASEAN and as an EU, ASEAN response to Myanmar, there has been 5 points, no results found on the ground. So ASEAN is our neighbor, but their inactions is unacceptable. 5 point has been there for the last 40 months, but no results on the ground. But that side, EU has responded this crisis in Ukraine in a very, very strong way. and they have visited Ukraine. EU leader has visited Ukraine, and the neighbor of Ukraine opened the door to millions of Ukraine devastating refugees who are fleeing from the death. They are fleeing for their life, so they opened the door. But in Myanmar, our neighbor are not opening even humanitarian door for many of refugees. So those are the different things that the world need to see clear picture. So in the way, what I'm saying is our neighbor, like ASEAN and other countries, there's so much to be learned from Ukraine neighbor and learn from EU the lessons. It's very, very important that in the way Ukraine crisis have shown us that love is possible, courage is possible, solidarity is possible. Showing humanity to our neighbor in crisis is possible. It's good. It's showing the light into the darkness. It's showing the life into the deaths. In the way military generals in Myanmar are showing the face of deaths every day to the people of Myanmar. And now it's the choice for our neighbor to make. Should it show the gods of life, or should it show again like the gods of death? There's only two things to choose. So I think it's a time for our neighbor to choose to show the gods of life to their neighbor in crisis. So that is another part. But also international community, the response to Ukraine crisis, like United States alone, more than nearly, I would say, more than 40 billion, nearly 50 billion assistance has been provided to Ukraine people. And Ukraine people are the hero of peace. The same Myanmar people are the hero of peace. They are the freedom frontline holder. So in terms of the help, now in Myanmar, if I combined all the assistance from all over the world, it may not have reached even 1 billion. So it's just, you see big differences. And United Nations, the response of United Nations to Ukraine crisis, example, UN General Assembly visit to Russia and to Ukraine, they should. The same we expected at least UN Secretary General visiting ASEAN country and visiting Myanmar, and to see this horror of crime against humanity themselves. So there is a lot of similarity between the people of Ukraine and the people of Myanmar, but there's so much difference between the response of ASEAN to Myanmar crisis and the response of EU to Ukraine crisis, and the response of Myanmar neighbors to Myanmar crisis, and the response of EU neighbors to neighbors to Ukraine crisis, and international community the same. Finally, sanction. The sanction that international community have put on Vladimir Putin and the Russian government has been swift and strong and coordinated. And the same sanction can be applied to genocidal military generals in Myanmar. Finally, crime is a crime everywhere. The crime in Ukraine is also a crime. War crime in Myanmar is a war crime. So in terms of the crime against humanity, it is the crime against humanity, no matter where it takes place. Any part of the world, when the crimes took place, the response of the responsible world leaders must be the same and equal. no matter where it happened, no matter which country it has happened, because it's about the crime against humanity, it's about atrocities, it's about injustice, it's about unfairness, it's about humanity.
Dr. Sasa, I don't want to get you in trouble, but the world community has certainly had an uneven application of its values. When you look at what happened in Ukraine, Europe rightly opened its borders and gave people temporary protection so that people could evacuate from the cruel war being waged by Russia. And yet, when it happened in Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, there were restrictive immigration rules that left people sitting on islands like Lesbos in Greece, in Turkey, and in direct provision in Ireland, which our Supreme Court has declared to be tantamount to concentration camps. Why do you believe that there has been a disparity in the application of our humanitarian values in these crises? Is it race? Is it traditional Westernism? Is it a colonial past? Why isn't the life of a Burmese person seemingly as valuable as a European person?
I think it's the problem with the principle and the problem with value and the problem with our, how I would say, our definitions of humanity. We all are born free. We all are born equal. And UN declarations of human rights is clear and loud. We all have the freedom to life. That means it's regardless of country. In a sense, we can say humanity have no border. We can even explore to the moons and the other planets around us. That is the freedom means that there's no much that kind of limitation be put on the humanity. So what I'm saying is love has no border. Justice has no border. Injustice in any other country, any other humanity is injustice to other humanity and other human being. It's a very simple. So in a way, I think Ukraine crisis have shown that insecurity in Ukraine is also insecurity in Europe. You cannot say I'm only secure and don't touch me. No. My security depends on others' security. It's very simple. My well-being depends on others' well-being. That means we all are here to serve one another. That means that one nation serve other nation, the nation serve other nation. So that sense, I think there's something wrong with principle that the world leaders hold. Maybe they have to all. I think is a a call for all of us, a call to humanity that there's a nuclear bomb we have developed because of insecurity, because of selfishness, because of self-serving principle. I think we should change all these things. Now is the time for us to say that Ukrainian people are fighting for the world freedom, not just for only Ukraine freedom. They are fighting for the world freedom of the world. The same the people of Myanmar are fighting for the freedom of the world. Democracy simply means freedom. Freedom of the people is called, in the way, democracy. Democracy is by the people, for the people. When we say by the people, that means the freedom of the people. Freedom to choose the leader and their government. So that means we all have to understand that the freedom came from creations, we are created in the freedom. So that sense, I think it's important for the world leaders to see that freedom is not only for one or a community or a race. Freedom is for all humanity. In that sense, democratic value is for all human beings in this world. So I think that principle need to be really clear and loud to all other leaders. Of course, it's not fair what we see in Afghanistan. It broke our heart. It's not fair what we see in Syria. Why are we giving injustice a chance, unfairness a chance, where there's a chance for fairness? Why are we giving injustice a chance, when there's a chance for justice? Why are we giving darkness a chance, where there's the light is more powerful than darkness? Why are we giving tyranny a chance, where there's the lights of freedom? That is for the world leader to make the choice.
I know that the EU likes to say that there's no better body at conflict resolution than the European Union. They may be right. But at the Antalya Diplomacy Forum, which I attended earlier this year, there was a robust dialogue about preventive diplomacy. By not addressing the dangers authoritarian regime might pose to the people of Myanmar, it almost encouraged or empowered the Tatmadaw to conduct a coup d'etat and depose what was a fledgling democracy with robust signs of success. The same in Syria, Afghanistan, in Ukraine. Why do you believe authoritarianism and democracy are now coming into such stark contrast? Has the world been too focused on economics and not focused enough on humanity for the past 30 years?
Peace is not on the surface, and love is not on the surface. Again, satisfactions and all these happiness or joy, all these are not on superficial. These are in deep down. We have to really go inside of this the mindsets of authoritarianism. Actually, they are the most insecure people. When we talk about authoritarianism, they are in trouble. They feel insecure, and that's where all these nuclear weapons and all these they're ready to use because they feel insecure. In a way, there's a cowardice there. They are not feeling secure, and they have no peace in their mindsets. So that is simply the darknesses that have been troubling in Ukraine and have been troubling in Myanmar. So the best solution to this is, I think, preventions. Prevention is better than cure. I came from medical background. So before it happened, before the disease happened, we need to prevent everything that we can in our power to make sure that nuclear bomb is not used, biological weapon is not used, atrocities and all this crime against humanity is prevented when there's a chance. So definitely, I think there's a chance for the whole world to prevent this craziness, these darknesses from happening again and again in the history of the humanity. And we have the chance to do so. How? We need to spread the freedom of the people of the world. The freedom is the answer to peace. Freedom of individual, freedom of a nation from these darknesses is the answer to peace. That means that we have to advance the freedom to all over the world. That means every corner of the world must have the freedom. The freedom is the freedom is the answer to peace. Freedom is answer to stability of the world, answer to economic. So I think all our economic, all our energy should be investment to that freedom, investment to the freedom of humanity. So I think the world is focused too much on economic, but economy itself does not make the human being free. It may even tie up the hands. So I think we should turn around and look again that all the resources and power, economy, business we have should be spent to the freedom of the world. Unless we can make that happen, authoritarianism will always have a chance, because authoritarianism is always there to come and control the people and destroy freedom and destroy our way of life. That's all they know. That's all they will do. So the best approach will be to use all our economic power to make this world a better place for all. That means to advance on the freedom of the world.
I want to pick up on a couple things. I know you're busy and have to go. So if I could just go quickly through these last few questions, I would appreciate it. You talked about what happened in Afghanistan and Syria, what's happening in Ukraine. I'm worried about food insecurity. Right now, the number of people living in abject poverty in Myanmar is significantly high, as it is in Afghanistan, as it is in the Middle East, and as it will be in Ukraine, unless Russia is brought to heel quickly. What can the world community do to alleviate the hunger in Myanmar?
I think the root cause of the problem is important to look at closely. Again, not in the surface, but deep down. So what is causing this hunger and starvations and this terror and this nightmare? The cause of the root cause, what is the root cause of the problem? Is authoritarianism. We can all spend our life chasing humanitarian crisis, chasing hunger and starvation. The problem will not solve because greater starvation will come, greater hunger will come, greater terror will come unless we solve the root cause of the problem. As I said, the root cause of the problem is tyranny, authoritarianism, brutality, inhumanity, and cruelty. The cure to those brutality, those cruelty, those inhumanity is the freedom of the world. Syria people must be free. We all must do everything we can to make them free from this terror. Ukraine people must be free from this terror. The same Afghanistan people must be free from this terror, this nightmare. We are now in 21st century. We should not have a place for this terror anymore. We should not have a place for this hunger and starvation when we have got so much of technology, advancing technology, I must say. Producing us the food is much easier than 100 years ago. Production of education, production of healthcare system is much more easier with all this advancing technology. Example, 100 years ago, there was no X-ray. There's no telephone. 50 years ago, there's no internet. But now we have all this technology. It should be, spreading to the whole world. So that means that there should not be place for hunger, starvations, terror, any more nightmare. So in a sense, I think that the root cause of the problem is the most important because that is the problem itself came from that root cause of the problem. So now, justice and accountability. is the mechanism to bring this perpetrator into justice. Is very important. There's a mechanism in ICC, there's a mechanism in ICJ, international mechanism to bring this perpetrator into justice. In Syria, in Afghanistan, in Myanmar, or in other part of the world, in Ukraine, all these perpetrators have to be brought to justice. That's number one. Number two, they must be held accountable for their actions. There's no other choice. If we cannot bring these perpetrators into justice, this root cause problem is not be held accountable for all this pain and the suffering and that distress they're causing. So that means that there will be, if we fail to bring this perpetrator into justice, there will be no justice served. That means that there will be normalization of hunger, normalization of starvation, normalization of rape, normalization of crime against humanity. Just imagine that. So that is what we are going to face if we do not bring this perpetrator into justice. The people will think it's normal to be hunger. Absolutely not. The people will think injustice is normal. So that is where the world is heading. So we must wake up. We must do everything we can to bring this perpetrator into justice. We have to see crime as a crime. We cannot see crime as clean or good. We can never see that. So it has to be the true color. Red is red, white is white. There's no such a thing as red is white or black is white. So crime is a crime, atrocity is atrocity, starvation, all these has to be brought to justice. So unless justice is be done, justice be delivered, I don't see this authoritarianism, this tyranny will stop.
Dr. Sasa, you talked about the 5 points of ASEAN earlier. I know that they've said that since no progress has been made, they would invite non-political parties from Myanmar to participate. Do you see the National Unity Government building a better and more constructive relationship with your neighbors through ASEAN?
I think now ASEAN is beginning to realize that they are in the wrong side of the history. I think they are very, very late to realize that. But it's good, better late than never. And now, of course, we have seen some of ASEAN, our neighbors, countries' foreign minister, saying we should be talking to National Unity Government of Myanmar. Actually, in the history of Myanmar, it's the first time in our history that we have National Unity Government. This is the first time in the history of Myanmar that we all are so united, more than ever before. This never happened before. Regardless of race, religions, culture, ethnicities, we are united now. And in fact, the greatest strength of Myanmar is unity in diversity. So ASEAN should have been, pick up this unity of the strength, where the strength of Myanmar is by listening to the will of the people of Myanmar. When I say the will of the people of Myanmar, is democratic and free will of the people of Myanmar that was expressed in 2020 Myanmar general elections. So now, when I say National Unity Government of Myanmar, we are comprised of ethnic armed organizations, elected member of parliament, grassroots civil society organizations, and strike groups, protest groups, CDM groups. So we are diverse group of people, stakeholder coming together. So ASEAN must engage all stakeholders in Myanmar. Previously, they have been engaging selectively and exclusively, not inclusively. So it's the time for ASEAN to change the course completely by coming and engaging inclusively with all the stakeholders in Myanmar. Now in the US, ASEAN US Summit is taking place. Of course, non-political person is something that ASEAN has been saying to the military generals. I'm very happy to tell you that our NUG leadership are now in Washington, D.C., having meeting with high level with US government. And in a sense, we are also meeting with some of ASEAN leaders in Washington, D.C. That means that I think gradually, at last, I think ASEAN has come to some realizations. I hope they will do this road aggressively and also not taking too much time, but doing swiftly and do what they have to do. That is to accept the will of the people of Myanmar. We, NUG, are the government of Myanmar by the people for the people. So we are legitimate government of Myanmar. They should engage 12 months ago with us. But it takes them 12 months to engage with us. Now they have to do aggressive engagement with us.
Dr. Sasa, my last question to you is one the world community will ask. Does that inclusiveness extend to the Rohingya people?
Yes, we have right from the beginning saying that Rohingya people are one of us, a part of Myanmar community, and we have called them our dear brothers and sisters. So when I say brothers and sisters, it's a blood relationship in a way. We breathe the same air, we drink the same water, the water of Myanmar, we breathe the air of Myanmar together, so we are the same. So we have got a clear positions of NUG towards Rohingya crisis. In fact, these same military generals, genocidal military generals, are responsible for these atrocities, this crime against humanity, against Rohingya people, and before Rohingya people, against ethnic minorities in Myanmar, like Chin, Kachin, Karen, Shan, Mon, Rakhine. The last 70 years, we live under this genocidal military generals' brutality, inhumanity, and cruelty. And then it was again expressed to Rohingya brothers, sisters, since 2017, the world watch the crime against humanity. And at least now we are very thankful and welcome to the United States of America for making the determinations on Rohingya crisis a term as genocide. And we have made clear statements to support and welcome U.S. determinations of Rohingya genocide by the military generals in Myanmar, who also now responsible for all these crises that we're talking about. And so this is a very, very important moment for the history of Myanmar, and it's an important moment for history of justice. It is an important moment for history of humanity as well. So I think it is very important for the world to support NUG because Myanmar never have the leadership that they have now. We have the leadership that can work with international community, that cooperate with international community, that also have the 100% willingness to cooperate with the highest court of UN, ICJ. We have made clear that ICJ decision will be accepted by NUG, and we have also made clear that ICC, international jurisdiction, will be accepted. It's all towards Rohingya brothers and sisters crisis in Myanmar. So we have made it very clear our inclusiveness is regardless of race. Our inclusiveness is regardless of culture, regardless of languages, regardless of gender, regardless of ethnic background. So our future is freedom for all the people of Myanmar. That means regardless of race, regardless of ethnicities, regardless of culture and languages. That means that freedom is for all the people of Myanmar and for all the world. So that is our principle, and that is our approach, that is our value. So we cannot compromise with our principle. And we will never bow down, we will never surrender, we will never give up to that value and that principle of our freedom, our equality, and democracy for Myanmar.
I hope you take this as a compliment. You sound very Ukrainian. And I think it's a value that the people of the world now expect as a standard in confronting authoritarianism, human rights abuses, and for the sake of democracy. My last question to you is, would you accept international delegations visiting the NUG? I know that that has been a very effective tool in changing European opinion about supporting Ukraine. Would you accept your international delegations visiting the NUG in Myanmar?
Definitely, we are ready. We are standby. We have been asking international community, not just only visiting us, but helping the people of Myanmar, supporting the people of Myanmar. And now we have got, NUG have got, with our alliance on the ground, 50% of Myanmar is under our territory control. So they can visit our territory control any times, any places. They all be most welcome. And we are waiting for the national community to visit us, to support this struggle for freedom, this struggle for democracy. The earlier they visit us, the earlier they support us, the sooner you will see the freedom coming and flourishing in Myanmar.
Dr. Sasa, thank you for your time. I know that the broadband problems are a challenge for us always, but I appreciate you making the time for us. And I want to congratulate the National Unity Government on your high-level meetings and engagement at ASEAN and with the United States government, with the British and the rest of the free world. Let's hope that you get the support you need to turn back the tide of authoritarianism and human rights abuses. I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you very much once again, Miho. I really appreciate it.
Stay safe, and congratulations on your control of the majority of the country. I think that's a great achievement. This is Miceal O'Hurley with Diplomacy in Ireland, the European diplomat. We've been talking to Dr. Sasa, the Minister for International Cooperation for the National Unity Government of Myanmar. You've heard him say it. It's an inclusive government focused on democracy and human rights. Let's wish them well. Thank you, Dr. Sasa.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.
300 million years ago, there was no Africa, Asia, Americas, or Europe. Just one big supercontinent, Pangea. And today, there is still a force connecting those divided by distance, reversing millions of years of rifting. Making far feel close, bringing there to here. Turkish Airlines.